So let's talk about the media and politics mixing. So New York Governor Andrew Cuomo was on CNN being interviewed by his brother Chris Cuomo, talking about this train derailment that happened on the Metro North in New York. And there might be some level of conflict of interest there because his brother is in charge of the Metro North and does appoint people to jobs there. And Chris Cuomo took some flack for it, and he addressed it also on CNN.
But I knew there was no conflict here. There's no question of conflict because he's got a job to do. So do I. This was all fact-based, and it's something that didn't involve him in terms of the accountability. See, that changes everything. If there's something that's been done wrong in the state level, then he deserves to get hammered. He's got to answer for it, right? I wouldn't put myself in that position because it's going to raise questions.
Okay, so just to be very clear there, actually Governor Cuomo, although he obviously wasn't driving the train, I'm pretty sure about that, the MTA is a state agency. He appoints its chairman, its CEO, and 5 of its 19 board members. He also writes the budget for the MTA. So there is some level of conflict of interest. Obviously, again, not driving the train specifically. There is a ton of this in the media right now where we have politicians related to and or married to the people that are interviewing them or people that are just in the news talking about them all the time. So this is a very small sample of what's going on. So Andrea Mitchell over at MSNBC, she's the wife of Alan Greenspan, who used to run the Fed. Luke Russert, who's a big shot at MSNBC now, he's the son of Tim Russert from NBC News. So that's not a direct politics to media one, that's just a media to media one. But it's given him all kinds of access that no one else would have got. Meghan McCain, who everyone says is the young, hip Republican, she's the daughter of John McCain, of course. Christiane Amanpour, who I think is CNN's chief foreign policy person. She's the wife of James Rubin, who was in Bill Clinton's cabinet. Abby Huntsman on MSNBC is the daughter of John Huntsman, who's the former governor of Utah, who ran for president. I actually like both of them a lot, but nonetheless. And then, of course, Chris Cuomo on CNN is the brother of Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York. Now, and there's just a ton more examples of this. So before we get into the specifics of the Cuomo thing, how dangerous is all of this as a general rule? Because even if there aren't specific conflicts of interest, you're never going to question your brother the way you might question a complete stranger.
That's true. I mean, you can't fault someone for, wanting to get involved in the family business, even though this family business is a little different. I mean, would we be saying this if they were both cobblers? We wouldn't be like, liar! So we can't say that, you have to do something different than, your husband or your father or whatever. But don't you think a lot of this Cuomo business would have been cleared up if you would have just asked a question like, what could you have done differently? How are you going to fix this in the future? Because he said this was all fact-based, but there are a lot of questions he could have asked that were not fact-based that would have put his brother in the hot seat, and he would have actually sounded like he was speaking for the people instead of just speaking as a family member.
Right, and actually, even as we tape this now, I mean, this happened a couple days before. It's still unclear exactly what happened. It sounds like the guy might have dozed off, but they're not totally sure yet.
It's one of those things. It's very simple to solve this. I mean, sure, Chris Cuomo can have his spot on New Day, and actually, I like what Chris Cuomo's been doing in general.
Yeah, this is not against Chris Cuomo,
right? But it's very simple. There's other anchors at CNN. There's other interviewers. There's other reporters. There's anybody that can talk about this. So the headline turned into Cuomo interviews Cuomo, and I think they knew that was going to be what happened.
And then they do another segment on that. It's a little bit
just being cute,
right? Where they yeah, exactly. Well, this reminds me of just a couple of weeks ago, Anderson Cooper in the Philippines, the government there was upset that where CNN was shooting, and then CNN did a segment on what the government felt about Anderson Cooper's reporting. And it's like, we keep just making this gross mix of things. But how much should the public be aware of this kind of stuff? So someone like Andrea Mitchell on MSNBC, who has a daily show, her husband is the former chairman of the Fed. That seems like it might come into play when she's interviewing people about budgets or things like that.
And that's the thing. It can be so simple. And maybe, again, we revert back to the old man not knowing how the internet works controversy. People can look this up. It's a general cursory search. And like I said, when I'm looking and trying to see if someone is lying to me, I just look up a little bit of that background and find out what are the reasons for you to say these things.
So you're the one You're the one that takes the extra step and actually gives a shit.
You're in the biz, though. See, that's the thing. Most people don't do it. It's great that you do it, but what do you think for the average person? You know, even somebody like, you know, Chelsea Clinton had a pretty cush gig at NBC News, which I think because she was so awful finally went away. Jenna Bush is a contributor over there. They were both children of presidents. You think that had something to do with how they got the job? So what should the regular person do? Because most people aren't.
I don't mean to
going to take the due diligence.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't mean to be super like slack or cynical, but first of all, I don't think most people know. Second of all, if we just took a cross section of people on the street and said, "How do you feel about this?" they would have literally no opinion. And I'm not saying it's because they're stupid, and I'm not saying it's because they're lazy. People just don't care.
Yeah.
So I think we're the only ones that care about this.
Can I even say, people may think, "Oh, that's cool."
Exactly.
Chris interviewed Andrew? Awesome.
Yeah, check out. I don't really care about the MTA, but I'd like to see Cuomo to Cuomo every Wednesday night or whatever.
Yeah. So is this more of just a sort of baseline attack on cable news that we just shouldn't expect more? You know, it goes to like the Crossfire thing where now they've issued a new statement where Newt Gingrich doesn't even have to disclose when he's interviewing someone who he raises money for because it's so obvious that the show is so slanted.
Well, that's different. I mean, that's insane.
But it's true. He literally, they used to have to show a little something or he'd have to say something. They actually released
Not even a chyron that says like BFF.
It's like part of the policy.
It's it's actually part of the policy.
That's funny.
So should we expect it?
Because what has become supreme is getting the ratings. Again, I'll give the same example. Cuomo versus Cuomo. You can do a Street Fighter, put their heads and do verses. Round one. But so they can do all that stuff, and it's cool because people. I'm gonna watch the interview on CNN. I haven't watched anything on CNN, but I'm gonna watch this one because it's the brother. So what they've generated is we need to find a different way to get ratings because people aren't watching us as much anymore. So they'll take that.
I'm gonna take your Street Fighter reference and raise it and say nobody wants to see a tie between Rose and full disclosure, I voiced Rose. But I don't remember any of the other characters. But that's the thing.
You voiced Rose?
Yeah, I'm Rose in Street Fighter 4.
Yeah.
Soul Spark.
Oh my God.
So anyway, just to talk about.
Bring it home here. Bring it home.
But that's the thing. I think that when people tune in to see Cuomo versus Cuomo, and then they just see a bunch of guys like slapping each other on the back and shaking hands and see how woefully anticlimactic it is, then how did that help them?